Wargamer by Yes That's 3D Printed and FauxHammer is a new resin that promises to be perfect for miniature 3D printers out there. It's water washable, it's meant to be flexible, it's meant to be tough as well. So how does it hold up? Well, in this video I'm going to tell you about my experience using it. But first up, a bit of a disclosure, they did send me 2 bottles of this free of charge to test out, but they haven't biased my opinion, they've not told me what to say, so here we go. Now, my usual favourite resin is FauxHammer Art Engineering resin, just because it's a really nice flexible resin and it's fantastic for miniatures, but it's hard to work with. So when Yes That's 3D Printed reached out to me and said, do you want to test this out? Here's what we basically reckon it's going to do. Here's what we think it should be able to pull off. I was pretty excited. Their sales pitch is really good and there's a lot of information on their website about this, and it promises to be the kind of resin that's been built primarily for miniature printers like myself, and probably most people in the audience as well. So I got 2 bottles of this sent over to me, and instantly I fell in love with it, not because of the product or the packaging or anything else, but because it has really good, clear instructions. When I first opened it up, I thought the instructions were just crap, because there aren't any really in the box. It tells you to go to a website, which is fine. And it's definitely fine when the website is as thorough as these ones are. Basically tells you everything you need to know about this resin. It tells you all about cure times, about exposure times, how to do different things, how to wash it, how to make sure that everything that you do with this resin is done right. And you don't have to go off and try and find something else on a forum or on a Facebook group, on somebody's Discord channel like mine, which you can find linked down below. So massive hats off to them. There's illustrations and stuff like that, but really, really thorough instructions. And I wish every single resin manufacturer out there would do the same, because you always see the repeated questions because they get asked so much. And although they're not going to give you the exact settings you absolutely will need for your entire printer, they will get you close, and they will just at least tell new people into this hobby how to actually do these things and what some of the, I guess, the do's and don'ts are of their resin. So, gushing over that, I was really impressed straight off the bat that they'd taken the time just to build that up right from the ground. But then it was on to actually working with this stuff. And I've got to say, I really like this. It comes in your usual bottle that you expect from most resins. It's not one of the flat ones, it's one of the round bottles. It's all sealed up nicely, it's easy to work with. Basically popped it open, removed that little silver foil cappy bit, and then poured it in. Now obviously when you use any kind of resin, you want to make sure you're using it at a good temperature. Again, the instructions tell you all about this and about why you want to be working at a good temperature as well. So I got my little heater on and I got it all going in my little grow tent. So I kicked off starting at 2.5 seconds for my exposure times as they recommended, and then I worked it backwards, and I think in the end I settled for around about 2.2 seconds on my Mega 8KS. I think they're ever so slightly overexposed where I've got them at the moment, but I'm happy with the prints. And I end up printing loads of different things, and I'll have some previews up on here. A lot of this is like my Orcs and Goblins stuff as well by Highlands Miniatures, because I'm really, really wanting to print all of that off at the moment. And the one thing that I found... Oh, well, it works, it didn't just break. The one thing I found when it came to the quality is it's really good. It was a very, very good quality resin. Everything came out really nice. There's lots of sharp detail on there. On him, for example, I can see all like the bits in his hair. Teeth came out clearly, all the bits on the rope and everything. All that texture that I would expect from a good resin is there, which is fantastic. On the bore as well, which I almost dropped. Again, you can see all the texture and everything that you'd want to do. I printed off a range of different models as well, just to kind of try it out. So I've got the Orcs and Goblins, I've got the boar, for example. I've got this Space Marine here, so this Emperor's Children Space Marine proxy. Really like this model, by the way. But again, all the detail came out very nice. There's a lot of flat surfaces on this one, and I figured that would be kind of good to show it off. See what the armor looks like, for example, and then some of those more fine details. And then I decided to print something a bit bigger just to see if I got too much shrinkage and stuff like that. So I printed off this Landspeeder proxy by Station Forge Miniatures, and again, just to kind of show off some of the detail. With this, there's a lot of flat surfaces on this, so I wanted to see how well it worked, and it comes off in multiple parts as well. And as anybody who's done any resin 3D printing knows, you can sometimes get shrinkage or warping, and that can make putting things together a bit of just a pain in the bum. With this, I was really impressed. Everything went together very nicely. I didn't have to sand things down, I didn't have to cut away parts, it all fit nicely. The only bit that I had is in this middle part here. You had to join these 2 connecting pieces together, and there was an ever so slight gap where it almost, I don't know, bulged or warped slightly in the connector piece down there, but I didn't have to do too much to kind of fix it. I just threw some additional super glue on there and went the real lazy way, but everything fit really nicely. So with this resin, I was getting like no shrinkage and stuff like that, or very little shrinkage. Next, I'm just going to talk briefly about ease of use of this resin. because this is where this resin really, really shines. The Jamhe Art Engineering resin is my favourite resin when it comes to a good print. But getting a good print from that can be really difficult. It's a very difficult resin to work with. And I've often found that the more flexible and robust that a resin becomes, the harder it is to work with, because it's flexible on those supports. So that, you know, when you've got all of your bits and all your forces working against it, it can then pull things off the supports, it can then warp it. Loads of things can go wrong. I didn't have a single failure with this resin, which was really impressive. Bear in mind that I printed through 2 bottles of the stuff, didn't have a single failure. And I printed off some large things that obviously needed a bit more supporting. I printed off all these little things as well, loads of things in different parts. So all in all, I was really, really impressed. The other thing to bear in mind as well is this is water washable, and I hate water washable resins. Whenever anything is advertised as water washable resin, I run for the hills, purely because I know that it is really convenient because you don't need to use alcohol to clean it. So I completely understand why people like it. But I always find that A, water doesn't particularly wash it that well. You have to do a lot more cleaning on it. But also as well, you just need to look at a water washable print and it explodes into like a million pieces. They're not very robust. So when I saw this was going to be really robust and water washable, I just didn't believe their claims at all. So working with this is very easy. Like, as a new person out there to the hobby, picking up a bottle of this, you're probably going to get successful prints almost instantly. And that's really hard to find in a good quality resin. But the thing everybody is going to be wondering about is the durability of it. So I had to put it through its drop tests. Now, I do these at 3 different heights. I do them at like standard coffee table height. I then do them at like a desk height or a gaming table height, where you probably have your average gaming table at. And then I do them at like a top shelf height as well. And I'll have all of those listed on screen so you can see what those heights are. And for this, I always print off these demons by one-page rules. One-page rules must hate me for constantly using their demon to show how I break models. But the reason I use this is because it's got so many fiddly parts. It's got these like long spindly tail, this long horns coming off of it. Its sword has this really tiny thin connection point on it as well. So when you drop these, you absolutely expect they're gonna break. Now I print off 15 of these, so 5 demons per height. The first 5 non-broke. So that was a big win straight away. At the middle height, 1 broke, although only slightly broke. The top of the horn snapped off because of the way it landed. And then on the final height, which is the top shelf height, none broke. So all in all, 14 out of the 15 demons survived, which surprised me because in using this resin, it doesn't flex that much. And I kind of expected that they wouldn't survive quite as much. So all in all, the durability of this, it does pretty much live up to the claims. So they survived, they did well. They didn't survive quite as well as the Art Engineering resin, because with that I put them through like 30 times in the end to see if I could break any, and I never could because it was just so flexible. But bear in mind how much easier this is to work with, so that makes it a big win there. And also the fact that it's water washable resin. When I was using this and finding it easy to work with, it felt very similar to every other water washable resin I have ever used in the past. So I expected these just to shatter when I started dropping them. So I was really impressed that they survived as well as they did. So this is now the 2nd most durable resin I've currently tested to this date. I'm really impressed with it so far. However, it's not all unicorns and sunshine and butterflies and perfect prints. This resin does have a couple of odd things about it that you do want to consider and just be aware of when you're printing with it. The first one is that they kind of remain tacky. Like, a little bit sticky for about 24 hours after printing. Now in the instructions, it does point out, once you've done all of your cleanup process, either doing it in water or doing it in alcohol, you need to give them a good scrub, and then you need to dry them off and then cure them. But then after curing them, you do need to leave them for 24 hours. I've never done this with a resin before, and that might just be me being ignorant to how resin actually works, and I've probably messed up a whole bunch of different resin miniatures in the past. It's not a big issue. But you do with this, in my opinion at least, you definitely do need to leave them. Because I was getting them through and I just thought that they weren't clean, or that this resin couldn't be cleaned. I was really, for the vast majority of them, they were okay. But on some of them, I was trying to give them a clean, and then they just remained ever so slightly sticky and tacky, and you could just about see it. And because they were in my garage, which is where I do all my 3D printing, and I'm in the UK, we don't have any form of heat at the moment, it was staying cold. But when I brought them into the house after curing them and put them in my old box of Doom, The next day I came back to them and they were fine. They were no longer sticky, they were no longer tacky, they were no longer shiny. So yeah, so if you're getting those kind of results after you're doing your curing, just bear in mind you need to bring them in where it's kind of warm and just let them dry off and let the resin do its thing. And apparently that sorts it. So do I recommend this resin? And yes, it's probably my favorite resin to use for miniatures now. And that's because it gets a really, really good balance of easy to work with and durability as well. The only other consideration to make between this and another type of resin is it's far more expensive. I think it retails for around about 50 Brexit pounds. So it is a lot more expensive than something like the Jamhe Art Engineering resin, which is about 32 pounds. Again, prices may vary depending where you are. But in my opinion, it's better to spend more on a resin since you're gonna be then spending all of that time afterwards, or I would imagine you're gonna be spending all that time afterwards, doing all that work to clean them up, get them primed, and then paint them up. So why not at least get that base right? Because you can buy far cheaper resins. I mean, you could buy like 3 bottles of a cheap resin versus 1 bottle of the Wargamer resin and just go wild with it. But then when you start using those minis on a tabletop and someone handles them a little roughly, or you drop one, they'll break, versus something like this where they're much more likely to survive. You don't want to do all that hard work for them just to break. And speaking of painting as well, it takes paint really nicely, as you'd expect. I had no issues getting them primed and painted. Nothing's come off or peeled off or anything like that. So that's my experience with the Wargamer resin. I'm really impressed with it. When they came to me and they were making big bold claims about, it's going to do great, it offers all of this, I was dubious as you'd expect that I would be, but it has lived up to its expectations. It has some odd quirks and it feels different to any other resin I've ever used in the past in like having those little odd quirks. But so long as you know about them, they're easy enough to get past, and all in all, the result that you get is just a really good, easy to work with resin that's resistant, that can take a drop, that can take a bang, and is, at the end of the day, great for using with tabletop miniatures that are resin 3D printed. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And do you have any questions about this? Thanks so much to Yes That's 3D Printed for sending this over to me. I really like it. It's good. It's really good. Thanks so much for watching. You can find all my links down below as well, so if you want to come over to my Discord channel, you can have a chat over there. I also have a Patreon page as well, so if you want to support the channel, it's fantastic. Thank you very much. And if you want to buy anything that's linked from my Amazon affiliate, get a bit of a kickback. It doesn't cost you anything extra, just helps to support the channel. So thank you so much for watching, and I will hopefully see you in the next one. Enjoy your 3D printing, your painting, and all of that jazz. Ta-ra!